President County Board, sir. Sing with me, everybody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seth Brooks is our invocation today.
Good afternoon. Before we pray, I've been asked if we could have a moment of silence for fellow Rotarian Charles Edward Coggins, who was born December 14, 1940, and passed away July 2nd, 2023. He was a past president of this club as well as a past assistant district governor. So if we could just take a moment of silence. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather here today in brotherhood and works for our fellow man. Proverbs 11:25, you told us that a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes another will be refreshed. Let us remember that each day that we get here is a gift from you, and that we use that gift not only to be generous to our fellow mans, generous to a fellow man, but to glorify you. And everything we do it to honor you, Lord. In Christ's holy name. Amen.
Thanks, Seth. Lawrence Johnson has family rotary today.
All right, big week this week, big day today too. Mr. James Etheridge, happy birthday. July 11th, Michael Goodman has a birthday. We got 3 on July 14th, Brooks Newell, Pat Thomas, and Walter Hill. And then Tom West on July 15th, happy birthday. Anniversaries this week, on July 15th, we got Lester Stewart and Tricia. And then on the 16th, Bob, Rudder, and Pam. Congratulations.
Linda Payton, will you please come forward to introduce the guests and visiting Rotarians?
Good afternoon. Lower. We are very happy to welcome any guests and visitors today. And when I call your name, will you please stand and remain standing until all names are called, though it's a short list. So, Lee Jacobs, guest of Dennisco. And Patrick Mallory, guest of Dennisco. Are there any other guests or visiting Rotarians? Welcome.
Can't ask Sean Gibson, please come forward. Uh, 1,513 points.
Good morning, Rotarians. All right, let's see who's the lucky draw. Should have grabbed a glass. All right, so the ending is 068. 068. All right. Was that a lucky one or five? You always wonder on the ones. That is it, yeah. All right. No winner this time.
Thank you. A couple announcements today, before we get going with the program. We do have the senior citizens luncheon. We have a scheduled date, so go ahead and put that on your calendars. It'll be December 11th. So, senior citizens luncheon will be December 11th. Also, just a reminder, invoices went out a couple weeks ago, so please be sure to get with Heather to pay that. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bo Thacker to introduce our guest speaker today.
Good morning.
Morning, Bo.
William Holman serves as the executive director of the Dothan Area Botanical Gardens. He came to the gardens just a little over 4 years ago after 34 years of service at Landmark Park. While at Landmark Park, he served as their executive director for over 30 years.
He was a good one, Bo.
That's right, he's a good one. William is a native of Dothan, graduating from Dothan High School. He holds a BA degree in history from Auburn University. After leaving Auburn, he earned a master's degree in environmental education while a student of the National Audubon Society Expedition Institute. This unique 2-year outdoor learning program led him across the country, learning about the outdoors while camping, backpacking, canoeing, and hiking in a variety of outdoor environments. He slept on the ground in a sleeping bag for 18 months. He says his back still hurts from that episode, but William is also a graduate of the Seminar for Historic Preservation, an intensive month-long training program held at Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia. William is married to the former Tammy Atkinson of Dothan, and they have 2 grown daughters, Anna and Caroline. Join me in welcoming William Holman.
Well, good afternoon, and glad to be back. It seems like I was here 2 or 3 years ago giving you an update on the garden, and I want to do that again today. Several things have happened since I was here last, but before I get started, I do want to recognize 2 board members who serve on our board, Ben Slinglup and Bo, who is our board president. And I see Sam Casey, and there may be others out there who have served on our board. I know there's quite a few people over the years, over the past 30 years, from this club that were involved in our organization. Well, we'll go ahead, and I just want to start, and I'll have to kind of give a hand signal to James to advance. I'm not going to take you through the gardens. I know a lot of you are familiar with the gardens. I'll touch on a few things. You know, we're on we're on Headland Avenue, and we share a common property border with Landmark Park. And one of the things that we recently did is we recognized Rayfield Vester. I don't know if a lot of you know the story behind how we got started, but Rayfield played a big part in it. As you know, Rayfield was the county agent for many years, and the Master Gardeners Association was started, which is a program through Extension, and so Rayfield was responsible for getting that program started here in Houston County. And it was maybe, I think, the second year that the Master Gardeners were around, And Rayfield was having to manage those classes and teach the participants. And one of the participants that year was talking about a trip she had been on. And she talked about all the beautiful botanical gardens that they visited on her trip. And she asked Rayfield and the class, why don't we have anything like that? You know, why don't we have beautiful botanical gardens like I saw on my trip? And Rayfield's answer was, nobody's ever tried. And so they kind of threw it back at him and said, well, why don't you? You're the county agent. And so that kind of put it on his back. But Rayfield is the one that wrote articles in his weekly column and got steering committees together, started talking about the idea of forming a botanical garden. And years later, this was back in the early 90s, and that's the picture of the first board. And you can probably see some Rotarians in there. I see A.C. Allen, and I see others there, but I'm sure that there are a lot of those folks that were in this club at one time. Well, they were able to acquire a piece of land, and it's about 48 acres. It's right next door to the Landmark Park. And it was a farm. They were growing soybeans. And so we had a very, very humble beginning. And when I first came to the garden, one of the first things I did was pull out all the old scrapbooks and started reading and trying to learn some of the history of the garden. And I thought it was interesting that there was an interview with A.C. Allen. And A.C. was on the tractor bush hogging, and it was just old farmland. And a reporter from the Dothan Eagle came to interview him. And A.C. started explaining to her what the dream was for the garden. And again, this was in the early days. There was not much happening. And so A.C., according to the article, A.C., when he finished, he took his hat off and kind of wiped the sweat off his head. And he said, ma'am, you may not believe this, but one day we're going to have something really good. And so if you go out there now, you'll see. That was our daylily garden in the very beginning. And you can see now what it looks like. That daylily garden is considered an official display garden through the American Daylily Society. There's only about 300 of these official display gardens in the U.S. and Canada. But we've come a long way from a field of soybeans. We have, as you know, and I'm not going to show you pictures of all of them, but we have a series of what we call pocket gardens, where we may feature hydrangeas in one garden, or roses in another garden, or daylilies in another garden. But, you know, the garden is just a wonderful place. When you think about what it looked like when we started 30 years ago, you know, it has really, really come a long way. You know, we have azalea gardens, and, you know, most of the azaleas you see in your yard are what people call, or what people in my world call exotic azaleas. They came from China. They came over to the U.S. about the 1840s, but we are now bringing more and more native plants into the garden. That's one of my goals, is to showcase some of our native plants. This is a native azalea, and we have had azaleas here the whole time. It's just they're not, or have not been for a long time, available commercially. Now they are. You can see it resembles the flower of a honeysuckle, and a lot of country folks will call it a wild honeysuckle or a bush honeysuckle, but it's a native azalea. And we have introduced into the garden all 12 different types that are found in Alabama. This one right here is called the plum leaf azalea, and it is probably the most restricted area naturally where it's found. And it's found right on both sides of the Chattahoochee River. The only place it grows naturally is from about Lee County down to about Henry County on both sides of the river. And so now you can buy them commercially, but these are unique in that you don't prune these. That's what a lot of people like about them. You don't prune them. You let them take their natural shape, and they are beautiful. They have a lot of blooms on them. And the difference is that a lot of these are fragrant. They have a fragrance that your normal azaleas do not. The rose garden was our first project. Once we had acquired the land, we bought, I think I said 47 or 48 acres. And the rose garden was the first project in the garden. And it's interesting, there have been articles about us getting this project underway. And we got a call from a lady, it was in Northwest Florida, I think it was Chipley or Graceful or somewhere, that they said, Mrs. So-and-so has just sold her farm and she has about 200 roses and the bulldozers come next week. And so if y'all want to have a rescue trip, you can. So they did. They didn't have the first shovel or trailer or truck or anything, but they were able to gather up volunteers and go down and dig about 140 roses and brought them back. And that was the beginning of our rose garden. And when I first got to the garden, we're fortunate in that we've got several groups in Dothan that are very active in the garden. There's a Rose Society, there's a Daylily Society, there's a Camellia Society. But when I first got here, the rose people said, now William, you know, we've got one of the best rose gardens around. And I was kind of thinking, yeah, well, but then we had our first rose show, and all these judges from out of town came and said to me, said, William, they're not kidding. You know, the Dothan Area Botanical Gardens does have one of the best rose gardens around. So it's something that we're proud of. We've got other, you know, hydrangea gardens, we have a tropical house that inside has a lot of orchids and things that you know, normally don't see growing here. We also have a demonstration garden. And again, these are just a few of the things we have. I'm not hitting on everything, but the demonstration garden here is maintained by the Wiregrass Master Gardener Association. And in that, there are about 16 raised beds, and we demonstrate different things you can do in your backyard. Well, as of this past June, that little garden with 16 raised beds has donated over 24,790 pounds of food to the food bank. And so, David, I'm not sure of the formula, but I think that comes out to over 19,000 meals for the folks in need. So it's an educational operation for us, but it also benefits the food bank. So you'll see master gardeners out there. Yeah, look, that's the potatoes out of just one bed. So other areas of the garden are not developed on purpose, and we realize that natural areas, a walk through the woods is something that's just as important as a horticultural bed. So we have a lot of folks that come out just to walk the trails. The garden is also a valuable, I think, valuable resource from an education standpoint. We bring in speakers to speak. Matter of fact, this weekend we had a master hummingbird bander that came in and tracked 4 hummingbirds and banded them, took the information, weighed them and measured them. They'll send that information on to the Cornell folks that manage that. Let's see, I think so we do programs, educational programs, and it's also a great learning lab for kids. There is something called the Junior Master Gardeners that our Master Gardener Association teaches. It gives kids hands-on experience with gardening. And, you know, gardening is really, can be a lifelong pursuit. And they have research now that shows, for example, if the kid grows a carrot, he's going to eat a carrot. If he grows kale, he'll eat kale. When he has a vested interest in what he's growing, they'll eat much more healthy. And so we do a lot of hands-on programs for kids. Not only does it benefit them, but in the long run, it'll benefit us. These will be our future gardeners that will support the gardening. That's a junior master gardener class that just graduated. And I'm sure a lot of you know that the garden is also a site for weddings. And other events, we have a wedding garden. We have a reception hall. It's called the Ricketts Reception Hall. I think Tommy was in this group. Tommy was very involved in the garden. But we have indoor and outdoor venues. And so our indoor Ricketts Hall is great for flower shows. We've had rose shows, daylily shows, and also different businesses come out, and some businesses like to have an off-site training area. So that is happening quite a bit. We do have some activities that we host. Scarecrows in the Garden is a familiar one. It's been going on for many, many years. Folks come out. We have the Ralph Smith Memorial Golf Tournament that really is an important fundraiser for us. If any of you are golfers, I hope you'll participate. It comes up October 26th. Gardens Aglow is another event that started small, but it has really come around. And one new thing about Gardens Aglow is that this, for example, is considered a silhouette or a Christmas display. We got a call a couple of months ago from a husband and wife down near Mobile, and they said, we've been doing Christmas decorations here for 30-something years, and we are getting out of it. And they wanted to offer it to Bellingrath Gardens, but Bellingrath said, no, give them to Dothan. So we went down. That, for example, that's a silhouette. They gave us 284 different Christmas silhouettes. So we're going to be able to greatly expand Gardens Aglow without spending a penny. So you'll see a lot of growth in that event. We went down on a truck and spent all morning loading up, and so that's something that is going to be great, because what it is now, we will have enough Christmas displays and lights to make it different every year. It won't have to be the same thing every year. We have a public art project called Egg Quest, where we distribute 4-foot wooden eggs to different schools, and the art students there paint those eggs, and they're put out for folks to enjoy. This egg came from Houston Academy several years ago, but you can see it's really, really well done. We have a plant sale. We're getting ready to combine our plant sale with the Master Gardeners plant sale, and so it'll wind up being a much bigger plant sale. Now, a couple of the changes that have been made. A lot of you know that we are no longer a free garden. For 25 years, we were a free garden, and that's one of the things we just had to change. So it's very nominal. We're the cheapest public garden in the state of Alabama. It's only $5 for adults, and that's anyone 16 and older. Anyone 15 or younger is free. So moms haul kids out there all the time, but they can get the kids in for free. But we participate with the library and their Connect Pass program. So if that admission, although it's very nominal, if that admission were to keep someone out of the garden, all they have to do, if they have a library card, they can get a one-time pass to the garden. They just go down to the main library and ask for a Connect Pass. We built in the last 3 or 4 years a picnic pavilion. And again, we're focusing on native plants. These are pitcher plants that you know what they are. They actually eat insects. Alabama has a unique, or Alabama is unique in that we have so many different kinds of fish plants. Other things we've done are kind of visitor service related. We now have good signage in the park, well, not, or in the garden, excuse me. You worked somewhere 34 years. But we have good signage now in the garden. When I first got there was not any directional signage. I mean, we all knew where everything was, but somebody who had never visited before would not. So we now have good directional signage. We also are in the process of putting up, thanks to Wiregrass Foundation, putting up interpretive signs at each garden. So these signs explain a little bit about the plants in that garden, what makes them unique, you know, tips on planting those in your backyard. We've also started a horticultural department. When I got there, we did not have anybody really with a background in horticulture. We now have 2 part-time people. The fellow on the right is Josh. He's got a master's degree in horticulture from Holman. And then Caitlin on the left, who has a degree from, I can't remember now, but she's South Florida. We'll just say South Florida. But her specialty is herbs. But they have taken the bull by the horns. They've done a lot of good things in the garden and are continuing to do that. I want to thank our state legislators. I don't know if you're here today, but the state has been very supportive of the garden as well as the city and the county. We want to thank our elected officials. But the main thing I want to share with you is this Wings of Wonder. And the last time I was here, I mentioned our goal of building a butterfly house. Well, we've done it. We have a 1,800 square foot butterfly house. There's only 3 of these in the entire state of Alabama, one in Huntsville at that botanical garden, one in Birmingham at the zoo, and now this one. So there's nobody else in South Alabama that has we cut the ribbon on it back in August. So it has not even really been open for a year, but it is but it is a great addition to the garden. And inside you'll find approximately 500 native butterflies.
Well, I was out there last week with grandkids. It's wonderful. If you haven't been, it's the most exciting I've seen them in quite a while.
Well, it is a unique experience, and you know, I encourage you to come out if you have not been. What you'll see inside, we've got everything a butterfly needs to complete its life cycle. We've got host plants, we've got flowering plants, and again, these are butterflies that are native, so that means they'll come to your backyard. These are ones that live here. Let's go back with a more. But you'll see their whole life cycle. You can see butterflies mate. You'll see them lay eggs. You'll see butterflies form their chrysalis, and many times you can actually see the butterflies come out of their chrysalis. But it's a really cool thing, and what we're doing is we're using the butterfly house as a teaching tool. So we're teaching about plants through butterflies. And that is because some butterflies can only lay their eggs on certain plants. So it's a very close relationship. Butterfly, for example, the monarch that's sitting on that kid's head has to have milkweed. So if you take away milkweed, you may not realize it, but you're taking away the monarch butterfly. There was a big effort a couple of years ago because farmers don't want milkweed in their fields, particularly if you're a dairy farmer. There was a big effort to get rid of milkweed. Well, a lot of people didn't really realize you're also getting rid of the butterfly when you do that. So we're using it as a teaching tool, and it's a great way to teach and to give that experience with butterflies. People who don't even like bugs like butterflies. So it's kind of another thing that we're doing. We are bringing sculpture into the garden. Now, this sculpture right here is the latest that we added, and it is called Time Spike. And the woman that made that, Jean Woodham, she graduated from Auburn in the 40s, went to New York, became an artist, and got interested in welding. And basically, she said, you know, if I'm going to design a piece of art or a piece of sculpture, I don't want to give it to a man to weld. I want to do it. So she learned how to weld. She became one of the foremost women artistic welders in the latter half of the 20th century. And she was born in Midland City. And so she was known all over the country. And very few people here know her. So she passed away 2 years ago, and the family still had this piece we were able to acquire. But she did mostly large pieces of sculpture. I've been to her house. She had about a 3-story studio where she could get herself winched up, or she could weld. She did big public pieces of art. That's in Auburn. There's only 3 places in the state where you can see some of her work, although she has 150 pieces all over the country, very little in Alabama. And so Auburn, Alabama State, and now the Gardens has some of her work. So she did big items. She was not a small, so she did a lot of stuff. But we're proud to have a piece of her work. She was born in Midland City, kind of grew up in Slocum, and was known all over the country. This is not there, but we hope to have a bridge one day across the creek. Cedar Creek is what flows between Landmark Park and the Botanical Garden. We have 15 acres on the other side of the creek that we don't have access to. So one of my goals is to try to get some type of pedestrian bridge across the creek so we can access the rest of our property. We hope to acquire more land. East of us is, let's see, that would be, yes, east of us, we hope to acquire some farmland. I hope to put in a longleaf pine wiregrass area. You know, this is what drew settlers to our area. And a lot of people don't realize that the longleaf pine area is one of the most biologically diverse habitats in North America. It's amazing. There's like, if I can find my notes, there's in a typical wiregrass longleaf pine area, there can be 900 different kinds of plants, which is just kind of unheard of. I mean, this is on the scale of a tropical rainforest.
Learn that vocational ag.
Yeah. And it's just like a tropical rainforest, except the diversity is under your feet instead of being up in the.
William, just happened to be traveling through Bruce, Florida yesterday, and Noku's Plantation.
Yeah.
Was founded by a guy who was a gambler, and he bought 54,000 acres, and he's making it to a longleaf pine preserve.
Yes, I read about it. Yeah. It's unique. It's a part of our natural heritage that's disappearing. And you know, this is what drew settlers here. They came to tap the pines for the turpentine, but little did they know that they were destroying or over harvesting, and that along with fire, and there's some other things. But anyway, that's something that we hope to do. But one of the main things too, I want to recognize is that the garden, even though we now have a horticulture department, the garden is still dependent on volunteers. We largely use volunteers in everything we do. The master gardeners play a key role in that, but there's other groups that come out. Just this month, these are kids from First United Methodist Church that came out and helped us with a project. Next week, we've got students from ACON that will be out there. So we still depend largely on volunteers and always will. So again, I want to encourage you, if you're not a volunteer, I encourage you to do so. And I have to close with a commercial. And that is, I did happen to bring some membership envelopes. If anybody would like to join, I encourage you to do so. Not many cities the size of Dothan have a botanical garden, and we're very, very fortunate. And as I always tell people, our botanical garden is a reflection of our community. It's there because the community wants it to be there, but we have to support it. And so if you're not a member, I encourage you to join. We have a great benefit package. If you join, not only do you get free admission to the garden and the butterfly house for a whole year, but we're part of a consortium of other botanical gardens. When you join us, you get some kind of benefit at over 340 other botanical gardens across the country. So even if you go to Atlanta, and we're priced on the lower end, but if you go to the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, it's going to cost you about $24 per person to get in. And so here, a $50 or $60 membership will get you in, us and them. But you'll receive some kind of benefit in over 340 gardens. So I guess that's kind of it. We are busy. There are a lot of things going on. We are growing. We are in the process of building another greenhouse right now. So anyway, it's a busy place, and I'm glad the community is coming out. We have about 25,000 visitors a year. Last year, of those that signed the guest register, it showed we had visitors from 45 states and 7 foreign countries. So people are coming, and again, I encourage you to help me support this garden. I'll answer any questions.
How do you staff a bird, your new, where my brain went, butterfly house? How do you staff? Can you buy butterflies?
Yes, we have to, and those little suckers cost about between $4 and $5 a piece, and they only live about 2 weeks. So UPS is constantly bringing us more butterflies. If you see me outside butterfly house with a butterfly net, I'm not chasing a butterfly, I'm chasing a $5 bill. So it is expensive, but it's worth it. I mean, if you see the smiles on people's faces when they leave that butterfly house, it's worth it. So it's an expensive proposition. That's why we do. Somebody else have a question?
Is there a place for bees?
Not yet. That's something I want to do. There were some beehives out there years ago, I understand. And bees are such good pollinators, and they're such an important story that they tell, that I do want to add those back. I've got to find a beekeeper. I don't have time to do it. And I don't have
Bees and
anybody.
butterflies compatible?
Oh,
Actually, the same thing.
Yeah, well, no, they would not be in the butterfly house. They would be separate.
They get in the book.
Well, no, that mesh is too tight. They couldn't get in. Yeah, we have to have a certain
Gauge.
certain gauge, right? Because we have to keep out wasps. There are a lot of things that prey on caterpillars that we have to keep out. But yes, I would like to tell the pollination story, of bees. Anything else?
What kind of precautions do you take at the butterfly house in the wintertime in inclement weather?
Well, I didn't say that it's seasonal. It is seasonal. So we'll shut it down about October 31st. So, because it's a screened enclosure, when it's too cold for butterflies outside, it's too cold inside there. Now, places like Callaway Gardens, you know, theirs is under glass. So they have to heat and cool that thing. But they're showing tropical butterflies, whereas ours are native, and it's just seasonal. We'll open it, about April the 1st and close it down around the end of October.
You have to replenish the supply every year, $5 a piece, you
Yeah.
got 400 varieties, is that what?
Well, no, 400 to 500 individual butterflies.
It's still $5
Yeah.
a piece.
Yeah, it costs us probably $25,000 a year to run butterflies. So, but.
I'd be handing out butterflies.
But it is unique. There's, again, only 3 of them in the state of Alabama. And it is driving, even though it's expensive, it is driving membership, it's driving admissions, it's driving gift shop sales. So it is bringing people to the dark. So, it's well worth the investment.
Adults are just as excited as kids when you get.
Yeah, I'm coming to the butterfly this weekend. Let me know that. I'm gonna be there.
It's,
David?
Would it ever make sense for the botanical garden and the landmark to join, or do they have 2 distinct missions?
I think the missions are pretty distinct. There have been efforts in the past to connect the 2. I think it'd be difficult. Yeah, they got more than they can say grace over, and we've got more than we can say grace over. You would think there'd be some efficiencies that we could gain, you know, by combining, but because of the admission and all that, I would not be in favor of it. It's a good question.
Thanks to you and your staff for providing this area with so much joy and entertainment. I was just out there with grandkids. I couldn't have asked for a better afternoon.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That's why we're there. That's why we're there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next week, our very own Troy Fountain will be with us, so we're looking forward to that. Thank you to the guests we had today, and for all those that helped put on the program today. With that, will you please stand to recite the 4-way test? Of the things we think, say, do. It's true. It's very all concerned. Have a great week.